Welcome back to the Thermo Diet Podcast. I'm your host, Jayton Miller, and I am here once again with my co-host, Mr. Tyler Woodward.
How are we doing today, Jayton?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm good. Today we're going to talk about sunburn, sunblock, and everything to do with the summer sun.
All right, let's get into it.
So first, let's talk about what the sun is and what causes us to burn and or tan. And so the sun is a form of energy, right? It emits light, which is more or less energy. And it primarily emits three types of radiation or light, which is UVA, ultraviolet A, UVB, and UVC. About most of UVB and UVC, which are the more harmful ones, are filtered out. But UVB is what actually reacts with cholesterol and creates vitamin D. And UVA is primarily what causes the tan and the burning, all that stuff, along with a little bit of UVB.
So does the UVA work with melanin?
UVA, I believe, is what primarily works with melanin. So when the sun reacts with your skin or hits your skin, it creates more or less oxidative stress in some ways, and your body produces a pigment or protein known as melanin, which darkens the color of your skin over time. So the darker your skin is naturally, there's two types of melanin. It's eumelanin, which is what's the black or white, more or less, and then pheomelanin, which is like how red your skin is. Same thing with your hair. The more eumelanin you produce, the darker your skin will be. So people that are of darker skin tone produce much more melanin naturally. Tanning temporarily increases the amount of melanin production in your skin.
Mm-hmm. Is that first one related to like theobromine?
Pheomelanin?
Yeah.
It's pheo, not theo.
Oh, okay.
But no, that is interesting. I do not think they are related. But so the pheomelanin is will cause ginger hair, I believe, and which causes you see more pheomelanin in just lighter skinned people, especially the Irish descent. And I believe there's a spectrum. I forget what it's called. It might be the Jefferson spectrum or something, where it's 1 through 6, the skin colors. Mm-hmm. So 6 being the darkest, 1 being the lightest, 1 basically having no ability to tan. And I think that is partially genetic, but I also think it's partially nutritional and what they have in the tank related to. So what's the protein that makes melanin? Do you know? Mm-mm. I think it's melanogenesis, the process. I forget, but it's a copper-dependent protein. So you need copper. You need obviously sunlight, and you likely probably need some form of cholesterol. I would say probably magnesium too. It's just a yes. It's just to create this melanin protein in order to darken your skin over time. Mm-hmm. And what causes the damage is obviously the same thing at sunlight, that primarily UVA and UVB radiation. But when the sunlight gets deeper into your skin, it can react with your DNA and things in the polyunsaturated fats, and it can cause oxidative stress, and that can result in DNA damage and all that stuff. But as we also know, sunlight is associated with a host of benefits. Do you want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah. So sunlight is basically a way I would say generally it's an anti-stressor. So one of the reasons that we sleep is to provide us from protection from darkness, right? Because whenever we're exposed to extreme amounts of darkness and we're awake, our stress levels go up because it's like an inability to work properly because we can't see, and it's really hard for us to do things. So in return, we sleep through the night, so our stress levels don't come up, and then our stress levels spike in the morning to wake us up, and then they go back down. And then light acts as kind of like an anti-stressor, so to speak. Sunlight's been associated with all kinds of benefits, from increased testosterone levels to lower cortisol levels, lower adrenaline levels. All kinds of stuff.
Regulates the circadian rhythm. Just a ridiculous amount of stuff. I kind of think of sunlight as like an oxidant, honestly, because it just speeds everything up. It speeds metabolic rate going, gets the metabolic rate going. So if you don't have the nutrients you need, I think sunblock. I think it's one of the things that can make sun more toxic. Mm-hmm. And obviously, sun is inherently a toxin. Same thing with oxygen, right? Humans really need both to live, but they're both kind of, in a way, what kills us a little bit. So it's like the dose makes the poison. Mm-hmm. Too much oxygen, not a good thing. Too much sunlight, not a good thing.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to note that all of our cells produce red light of their own. And so whenever you kind of get an external source of that light to kind of match the frequency that the cells are producing, it kind of helps the energy flow through the system a little bit easier because that wave frequency is matched.
Yeah, I was reading a little bit yesterday, I think, that the red light helps to structure water. So it just makes your cells more structured, which helps with energy. And, you're either ordered or disordered. So the more disordered you are, basically more dead you are in a lot of ways. More ordered you are, the more young you are, is kind of a way to think about it. So red light is just very beneficial for increasing ATP production, increasing structured water of your body, a bunch of things. And then not to mention vitamin D. So vitamin D, probably associated with all the things Jayton just said, reducing inflammation, increasing testosterone.
There's a bunch of cognitive benefits of vitamin D.
Lowers cortisol potently.
Bone density.
Yeah, definitely need for that, for regulating calcium. I think it also helps to prevent sarcopenia, right? Or no, osteoporosis, not sarcopenia. Yeah. Very anabolic hormone, very beneficial hormone. And
I wouldn't be surprised if it actually did help with sarcopenia, though. So sarcopenia is muscle wasting, correct? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it definitely helped with that in older populations specifically.
Also preventing calcification.
Oh, yes.
I would think that would have an effect on it.
Especially in combination with vitamin K.
Yeah, K2. Yep. So when your sun or your skin reacts with ultraviolet light, I think primarily UVA, I think it's UVB, sorry. It reacts with a compound that's circulating in your blood known as 7-dehydrocholesterol, which is I think it's a metabolite of cholesterol. And that reacts to form D3, which is the precursor to the two types, which is 25-OHD, which is a storage form of D, and that gets stored primarily, I think it's in the liver.
Which one?
25-OHD.
I'm not sure exactly where it's stored.
Stored somewhere in the body. I think it's stored a little bit throughout the body, but I think there is one place where it's primarily stored. It might be the liver. And then you have 125-OHD, which is where the storage form gets converted to the active form, basically to help absorb more calcium in the diet. Vitamin D, very important. But what doesn't get talked about is sunlight's effect on retinol or vitamin A. So the more sunlight you absorb, the more it breaks down retinol in the skin and all of that, which I've heard Matt Blackburn talk about that there's a lot of benefits to breaking down the retinol. I haven't seen what that is. I think there's probably a lot of benefits to the metabolites of the retinoic acid being broken down. But I think one of the big things that you can do to help your body do well in the sun is consuming enough vitamin A. And not to mention a lot of vitamin A foods are rich in cholesterol, like eggs, liver, the B vitamins, like selenium, which is an antioxidant helping to avoid lipid peroxidation from sunlight. So I think consuming enough retinol around the summer and throughout the year, honestly.
And vitamin E, I would say too. Vitamin E is definitely going to help out.
And so so another question I think is really interesting to think is why humans evolved lighter skin.
Okay.
So, I mean, the general theory of evolution is that we came out of Africa, probably out of the ocean, and Africa is obviously on the equator, which means we had which is why we had very dark skin to reflect most of the sunlight. So we're not, frying like an egg. As we migrated north out of this direct sunlight, we experienced a lot darker winters where we're exposed to a lot less sun. So I think it was a very beneficial adaptation for us to produce less melanin in our skin, more or less, so that we could absorb sunlight to a higher degree and make that make vitamin D. Because if you had very dark skin in Europe, or where it's very dark a lot of the year, you were likely much more prone to a vitamin D deficiency because the more darker your skin is, the longer it takes to produce the same amount of vitamin D. So Africans that are exposed to sunlight all the time, they don't produce nearly as much vitamin D as someone if you and I went to Africa for 10 minutes and exposed to that sunlight, we'd probably produce what they might produce in a week because our skin is so light compared to a very dark skinned person.
So you're saying that the more melanin somebody has, the less vitamin D that they tend to produce from sun exposure?
Well, you just need more sun exposure to produce the same amount of vitamin D.
Okay.
So if you and a very dark skinned person were to sit out in the sun for the same amount of time, you would probably have a significant increase in vitamin D, where the melanin is basically just a natural sunblock.
Okay.
So sunblock's going to block the sun, or melanin's going to block the sun from passing through the skin, so it's not going to hit the cholesterol where it needs to make vitamin D.
So that's why we actually get more tan over time.
Which I think is one of the natural mechanisms for preventing vitamin D toxicity. So basically, it's just going to prevent you from absorbing as much sunlight, producing as much vitamin D, and yeah. Also, there's another mechanism which vitamin D can just be reconverted back into cholesterol, so D3, which I think is pretty fascinating. It's just a self-regulatory mechanism to prevent excess vitamin D.
Mm-hmm. So would you say that generally people are pasty friends out there, would you say that they're generally deficient in vitamin D in most cases?
Well, they probably have. What do you mean? So
like because their skin is so light and they don't tan whenever they do get exposed to the sun, would you say that they're just consistently deficient in vitamin D, or would you say that that's more of like an inability to produce melanin?
I think it's more of an inability to produce melanin. There is some interesting studies where vitamin D might have some like photoprotective effects, where like might act like a natural sunblock as well. There's one study where they do a relatively high dose of vitamin D. I think it was like maybe 5,000 IUs, and it significantly decreased the inflammatory response from the sunburn, which I think is interesting. But I think generally it might be like a nutritional thing where they can't produce melanin. They might not have the genes to produce melanin. But I mean, a lot of those guys are avoiding the sun, so they may be more prone to vitamin D deficiencies. But to the same degree, like, and their 10-minute walk to work, they might be producing in the morning when there's no sun. They might be producing enough, getting enough sunlight to produce a significant quantity of vitamin D. So I wouldn't say that they are any more prone than anyone else. I would say probably the people that are most prone to vitamin D deficiencies might be someone with really dark skin living in an area that gets very little sunlight. So like the people in, I don't know, like Canada, probably like they're all very pale generally, and it's for good reason because they only get sun a couple months of the year, and it's not nearly as intense as being on the equator where you see people that are just extremely dark because they're getting sun all year round and very intense at that point.
Definitely. So how do we kind of get enough sunlight and not too much sunlight?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing to do is gradual exposure, graded exposure. So you probably don't want to, for your first time, like getting out in the sun, should not be in July when you go out for the beach for Memorial Day weekend or July 4th weekend, because you're probably just going to burn sitting in the sun all day. I have been sitting I work outside some days. I think it's great. You had some vitamin D, you feel great, especially before it gets too hot. And your computer overheats as well. So don't let that happen. But so just if you can get 10 minutes of sunshine daily, go for a walk. Go for a 10-minute walk every day at noon, right after your lunch. Probably you help you balance your blood sugar. You get some sunlight, which probably also helps balance your blood sugar, and then you're getting some steps in.
And you're also helping your digestion too.
And you're helping your digestion. There's probably some other things too, but 4 wins right there. And all you need to do is just go for a quick walk after lunch, help to refuel and just refocus. And I think even if it's in the winter, like getting some just on your face and taking your shirt off, sitting outside for 10 minutes a day. You see the people like Carnivore Aurelius, like they are exposing their genitals to the sun. I think that's kind of interesting. There's probably a lot of anabolic benefits to producing vitamin D, and the more places that you're exposed to the sun, probably the more beneficial it is.
Definitely, yeah. I would say that whenever I get a prime piece of land, I'm going to have a station for hanging upside down.
Yeah. Yeah, Jayton likes to hang out on his deck in Denver and just, show it to the natives. No, I'm kidding. But, yeah, it's very interesting. And just, getting tan, so you just don't want to burn, in my opinion. I don't think there's anything wrong with tanning in and of itself. And I think there's this argument that I was talking to a friend that's in pre-med right now, or he's in med school, and he was saying, current recommendations from the medical establishment is just avoid all light, wear sunblock. It was literally insane. Wear sunblock inside all year, and just supplement with vitamin D. These are skin dermatologists, like experts, quote unquote, are recommending you stay inside all year long. And even inside, you put on sunblock because the sun is that toxic, apparently.
Wow. That's insane.
Absolutely insane. I don't think so. If melanin was bad, right, the protein that you make more of, the more tan you get, you would expect darker skinned people to have the highest rates of skin cancer, which is a specific type of skin cancer, melanoma, which affects the melanocytes, which is like the deeper cells in skin, versus like basal and squamous cell carcinoma. That's what makes up like the most of your skin. It's like a bunch of layers. Those things aren't nearly as big a deal because they kind of just die, and they're kind of just so tight together, they just get pushed out with the skin. Melanoma is when it can get bad because those cells are deeper in and they tend to spread more easily. But But I don't think there's anything wrong. Sunlight I think is extremely beneficial. People like to talk about all the detriments of it and burning and skin cancer. There's a lot of protective benefits of sunlight in the right context.
Yeah, I would say almost more benefits than there are detriments whenever it's in the right context.
And I think the main detriments of sunlight occur when you are deficient in retinol and when you are saturated in PUFAs.
Yes, absolutely, for sure.
You want to go into lipid peroxidation a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Anytime. So saturated fats like coconut oil or anything if you look at coconut oil, you put it on your counter, it's solid. And that is how the majority of our fat in humans is. As we eat more PUFA, as humans though, we're not like cows. The more PUFAs we eat, more PUFAs become in our skin. Polyunsaturated fat. Polyunsaturated fats like olive oil, which is monounsaturated mostly, some PUFAs, or like soybean oil, canola oil, are all liquid at room temperature, which means when they're exposed to lighter heat, they tend to oxidize. So basically what that means is it causes free radical stress, or so that light tends to basically excite them. The bonds between them start moving, and those double bonds break. They open, and that releases a free radical, and this is called oxidative stress. And then lipid peroxidation is basically when these free radicals hit lipids, mostly PUFAs, and they basically just jump and hit one another and hit one another. It's called a chain reaction, and you need vitamin E to stop the chain reaction. Also, we've been looking into retinol. Also acts as an electron acceptor, so that may also have some protective effects.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is that the degree to which you have the potential to burn in excess is related to the amount of saturation that you have in your fat stores.
Yeah, I think the more saturated your fat stores are, the less likely you are to burn. This might also, like people that are very, very pale, they might see a lesser effect of this. They're still probably going to burn, but they're going to be much less likely to burn, in my opinion. And also, the skin cancer, I think, is largely related to the amount of polyunsaturated fat content. Because we know, lipid peroxidation, so when these highly unsaturated fatty acids like the omega-3s, DHA, and EPA, they form something called malondialdehyde, which is a marker for oxidative stress in the body. You see it, they use it a lot for cancer. They use it in the glutathione, reduced and oxidized glutathione is another ratio they look at. And you see, like, the more malondialdehyde, the more lipid peroxidation, and sunlight is going to increase lipid peroxidation, especially when you have a lot of PUFAs in the skin. Also, avoiding alcohol around the beach, probably good thing. Everyone loves to drink on the beach. Probably not going to be the biggest deal, but I do think it's probably going to be a little bit harder for your body to handle the sunlight when it has alcohol in the system as well.
Yeah, just an extra burden that you're putting on top of it. So why should we avoid sunscreen in most cases?
Well, because sunscreen is also filled with a ton of carcinogens. So Chris made a video. I actually wrote them down. Here's some. Not all these are carcinogens. Some of them are endocrine disruptors, but these are all known ingredients that have negative effects in the body. So benzophenone, avobenzonone, homosalate, octocrylene, octinoxate, and I already said that, homosalate. All things that are not beneficial.
Yeah, and a lot of the times they'll use different language on the labels too, to where it's either like a more chemical name, to where you don't really recognize what it is. So in general, I would say that I wouldn't use any kind of commercial sunscreen. Like, yeah, do you want to go in the type of sunscreens that would be beneficial to use? Yeah,
so I think worst case, I think the best sunscreen is Melanin. It's getting a base tan and just building that up over time. Just so, the darker you are, the less likely you are to burn, more time you'll be able to spend in the sun. And let's say, assuming you're consuming enough vitamin D, vitamin A, and all that stuff, so you're not the sun isn't detrimentally affecting you. But I think zinc oxide is probably the best real sunblock. So basically there's two types, sunscreens and sunblocks. Sunscreens work, they create a layer where they basically break apart, and it's like kind of this, it's absorbing the sun, and then it breaks apart kind of like, I don't know. Do you have any examples?
Mm-mm.
Versus sunblock is more like a mirror, so it's going to reflect it. Zinc oxide and titanium is a dioxide.
Titanium dioxide? In sunscreen specifically?
Yeah, I believe those are two active ingredients you typically most commonly find.
I've seen a lot of zinc oxide. I haven't really paid attention to the titanium dioxide though.
I think zinc oxide is the least toxic. So if you're going to use that, try and use a zinc oxide based sunscreen. Basically, just try and get as few ingredients as possible. Is there anything you recommend?
No, we do have a blog post on the Umzu Health blog that goes over like all of our personal care items, and there's some sunscreen options on there as well, or sunblock options on there as well that you can choose from. I know Jake Miner also has some recommendations inside of the Thermo Diet Facebook group. So yeah, definitely search both of those. Those are easy ways to find them.
But my favorite sunblock is coconut oil.
Yeah.
So coconut oil, allegedly, if you are very pale, it can actually make you burn more. I have not experienced that, but apparently it can happen. But coconut oil has about an SPF of about 8, and it's also very interesting that it melts at human body temperature, around 96 degrees, 98 degrees, I believe. So it kind of, I think it reflects some sunlight. It just really, I think it helps to saturate your skin, possibly from the outside. I think that's just speculation, but I think your skin absorbs a lot. And I think it's probably, I read about this in the Weston A. Price book. They would use coconut oil all the time. This tribe, I forget where it was. I think it was in Fiji. And that's what they would use as sunscreen. They would just lather themselves up in coconut oil. And other than your dogs licking you, it feels pretty good, and it honestly hydrates your skin very well as well. And I think it's a very interesting thing. It's like, because it's creating that layer between you and your skin, so it's going to keep the water in. It probably won't lose as much water. It probably help to hydrate your skin as well.
Definitely, yeah. Coconut oil is also really beneficial from healing from a sunburn too. Like toss that on after you get burnt a little bit, and it'll usually heal a little bit faster as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I think also some things that would work, I have not experienced. Butter could possibly work. Beef tallow. And then you use cacao, right? Cocoa butter?
Yeah, I do use cocoa butter. That's great too. It's also high in vitamin E too, so that's probably where some of the benefits come as well.
Yeah, I would love to see like us make a sunblock where it's like a little bit of tallow with the vitamins, a little bit of coconut oil, a little bit of like
cocoa butter.
Cocoa butter.
Yeah.
I think that would be very cool. And then I think some other things that can help, aspirin. So anything that has antioxidant qualities generally can help. So naringenin, apigenin are 2 potent antioxidants you see in like parsley and garlic and
orange juice.
Orange juice, vitamin C is going to likely help. Vitamin E. Anything else?
No, I think the moral of the story there is just to drink orange juice.
Drink orange juice. And then last thing I would say, get in the sun early. Just I think helps to set your body, kind of like let it know that it's going to be in the sun. And not wearing sunglasses all the time. I don't think it's an issue to wear sunglasses sometimes, but if you never expose your eyes to the sun, your eyes aren't going to be able to, they need to adapt to.
Yeah, I want to say like it's the first either 2 or 3 hours of the sun whenever it comes up that has the most amount of red light in it, and then like the last couple of evening hours as well that have the most healing spectrums of light. So yeah, if you're kind of worried about getting like the most intense times of the sun, usually like first thing in the morning or right before the sun goes down, those are good times to get some exposure.
They've also done some stuff that looks like red light can actually help heal sunburn, or at least reduce the inflammation. So staying in the sun longer after you're already burnt might actually help a little bit. Just getting, especially the sunset and sunrise where it's a lot of red light, you are going to, that may be beneficial for it, or just using red light therapy before after sunset. But if you are burnt, obviously, the goal, like we said, like it's not good to get burnt. Like you don't want to, you're obviously just damaging and stressing your skin. But I don't think the fine line is that tan, where you're getting that golden bronze tan gradually over time. And last but not least, just want to mention tanning beds are just a highly concentrated form of UVA radiation. They've been linked time and time again with cancer. I probably think they're not as bad as they've like kind of been led to believe, but I don't really think they're beneficial as sunlight is. Sunlight has this full array of ultraviolet light, red light, blue light, green light, purple light, whatever it is, that is extremely beneficial to our skin, and it produces vitamin D, which has some protective effects and all of that. And you're getting some red light throughout the day as well, the highest of the sunrise and sunset. But tanning beds are just a highly concentrated UVA, which is probably not very beneficial.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Great. Anything else?
Nope, I think that's it.
Awesome. So have fun in the summer and catch some waves for us.
Peace.